I'm still exploring some things, but I'm really excited to be here with you guys today.
Hi, everybody. My name is Shannon. I'm going into my third year this fall, and I'm majoring in Combinatorics and Optimization with a minor in pure mathematics. I'm really excited to be with you guys and Ali here today, and I hope we have some fun. So let's get started on some questions. Ali, do you want to go first?
Yeah, for sure. I'm just gonna read the question, I guess, before I start. So it says, I wonder how the co-op term will be like and how it will be affected by COVID-19. Um, so this really depends, I guess, on when you have co-op and like what stream you're gonna be in. Obviously, things are a little bit undecided right now because we don't know what things are gonna look like next year and everything like that. So the university will update you guys on that kind of stuff as it gets closer.
Yeah, we've been getting some very detailed emails for each term about what the co-op process will look like. So although it might not be the same by the time you guys are going on co-op, they will give lots of information and it will be very clear once you get to that point.
For sure.
Next question, how do you keep up with studying and co-op stuff? Any apps that you recommend to stay on track / focus / remind you that you have assignments besides Google Calendar? And how do you get better at something you're struggling with? Okay, so there's a lot in there. For organization, I like to make lists. Usually I do them on paper. I keep a journal with me, carry it around. During this past co-op term, I've been using like the tasks app that comes like with Windows, and just making a lot of lists so I have everything organized. I like to write how much time everything's going to take, when it's due, and that's how I stay organized. I prefer to write things down than type them up, so I don't actually have apps that I would recommend. And really just know your deadlines, know when the things are due, know how much time they're going to take and how much time you have to actually do them. And how to get better at something you're struggling with. This was a really big struggle for me in first year because I hadn't really done anything I was bad at before first year. Just because like I was good at most of the things I liked and the things I wasn't good at, I kind of just stopped doing. But yeah, you get to first year and things are hard. How to get better? Practice. Like honestly, it's sometimes scary to go and do something that you know you're bad at, but the more you do it, the better you will get at it. And it like won't be something you're struggling with anymore if you just keep at it, keep practicing, go to friends for help, like friends who you know are good at the thing, or if you're struggling in a course, go to the professor, go to the TA, ask people for help and really work on it. Learn from your mistakes, look back at them. Don't see your bad mark and be like, I don't want to look at that anymore. Like, go back, look at it, work through the problems you didn't get. Really, like, face the things you're struggling and work hard on them.
Just to like piggyback onto that a little bit for staying on track and just keeping organized throughout the school term. I know they asked about like what apps that you can use. I really like to use my iPad to keep myself organized, so I use the app Good Notes, but like you don't have to have that. You don't have to use an iPad to be organized, but that's just my personal preference. And I like to have a calendar of the whole term so I can see like all 4 months, all my deadlines. I put it all in there so that I can sort of know where I'm at and I can track and make sure I'm not missing anything important. The next question says, for online classes, when will we be receiving our schedules, or will all our lectures simply be pre-recorded? So this depends on your classes and your profs. So when classes start on Tuesday, you'll be able to see, or sometime next week, hopefully it'll be Tuesday, but you'll be able to see your syllabus for your classes, and that will outline sort of how your lectures will look like. Will they be live? Will they be notes? Will they be pre-recorded? That kind of stuff. So all those details will be given to you guys once classes are started on Tuesday.
How will we join clubs this year? So that's still a little up in the air. It's up to each club individually to decide if they want to run and if they're going to run, how they want to do that. You can find a list of all our clubs online. You look up U Waterloo clubs and you'll find a large list organized by categories alphabetically. And from that, you can look things up on Facebook, look things up on Instagram, ask your friends if they've heard of any clubs. Things for the most part will be online, but if any events are being hosted online or in person, they're often going to be posted on the club's Facebook, on the club's Instagram. So go look at the list online, figure out what clubs you think you might want to join, and then look them up on social media and you can figure out from then if they're going to run this year and how they will be running.
So then we have, how important is knowledge of vectors going into first year? I know vectors are a large part of Math 135, but my school was unable to cover them due to COVID. I was wondering if there would be a revision of sorts or if I should just use the coursework. So vectors actually don't come up until Math 136. So that'll be in your second term. So you won't have to worry about that just yet. But when they do come up, I know personally, like for me, without COVID being a factor, some of my friends didn't do vectors as well in their calculus courses. They were from different provinces and they just for some reason didn't teach it. So they do kind of start as if you don't know anything. It will be a little bit more fast paced than if you learned it in high school, but it won't be anything that's impossible to learn and to cover. And there'll definitely be lots of resources there for you when you're taking that course to be able to catch up if you feel like there's some gaps in your knowledge from high school from COVID, then there'll definitely be some resources you can use.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I did Math 146 for linear algebra, which is the advanced version, and even there, all the stuff was built up from the ground. It was built up much more quickly than you do things in high school, but you didn't actually need any of the vectors knowledge from high school. How not to fail in first year? Do your work, hand in assignments, write your quizzes. Don't skip things just because it's too much work or you think it's not worth that much. Like, all your coursework is important. Just because all your 10 assignments are only worth 10% of your grade, which may not happen this year because courses are online, but often in first year, all of your assignments make up a very small percentage of your grade. So people decide, oh, I don't want to do it. Like, it's not worth that much. That coursework is what allows you to do well in your exams and your midterms. It allows you to learn the material. So definitely do everything you're assigned. Like, anything that's going to be marked, try your best. Even if you have a quiz and you don't have time to study for it, just like go to the quiz and write the quiz, and then you will get your quiz back and see what you knew and what you didn't know. Just like keep on track, do your work, go to your lectures. Course notes are quite good, but the lectures will give you information that course notes don't really have, and in a way that course notes really aren't able to explain it because they're just like on paper rather than being live, someone working through problems. Just if you want to not fail, you can do that. You just go to your classes, you write your things. It may be hard. You can ask for help. There's office hours with your professor, with TAs. You can meet other people in the classes. It's really about how much you want to try and how much effort you want to put into it. And if you put in that effort, you will not fail.
Just to add something onto that, 100% I agree. Everything Shannon said is like spot on. If you're having trouble with an assignment and you're pressed for time and you're like, I've only done half of it, something that my friends would do in first year, they're like, I'm just not going to turn it in. If you have even like 10% of something done, just hand it in because you can still get valuable feedback on what you have done and you can still earn those partial marks, which may or may not help your grade in the long term. So if you think you know absolutely nothing, basically still try a little bit and hand in what you have. That's something that I had to learn.
Yeah, even if you submit an answer that you think is completely wrong, oftentimes you'll get like 1 or 2 marks for it. And that can be the difference between passing the course or failing the course.
100%. Okay, I think the next question is for you, Shannon.
Yeah, I might take that. What exactly is combinatorics and optimization all about, and what jobs can you get with that major? Okay, so combinatorics and optimization, as you may be able to tell by the name, is like kind of two different topics of math that they put together because there's not enough of each of them to make a major. It focuses on combinatorics, which is the mathematics of counting. It includes both enumeration, which is again like counting large amounts of objects, different types of objects, how many of this specific type of thing is there, and like finding patterns in that. And combinatorics also is graph theory, which I'm super interested in. It's look up graph theory if you're interested in. It's quite straightforward. You'll just like see some graphs. It's not like a bar graph or a pie graph like you see in high school and middle school. It's like dots with lines connecting to them, and you have really interesting patterns in there. And what I love about combinatorics is that it's just like really fun. It's like playing around with like numbers, and there's not a lot of like formulas you have to memorize. It's just really like puzzles and figuring things out and like solving problems. And it feels kind of magical to me, and I really like it. Optimization is kind of like what the word optimization is, finding the quickest way to do something, finding the smallest number or the largest number. Um, it There are several different types of optimization. Some involve more linear algebra, some involve more calculus. This is much more like similar to the mathematics you would be familiar with. You're following steps, you're doing things more systematically to optimize a problem. You're given a problem, you want to figure out the fastest way to do it, the best way to do it, the most money you can make, like that type of thing would be an optimization problem. Also kind of hidden into combinatorics and optimization is cryptography, which I think is super interesting. We have courses on coding theory, quantum cryptography, um, and that's basically how you keep things secure on the internet, how people keep your banking information safe, how you send secret messages to your friends, stuff like that. What jobs can you get with that major? So me personally, I want to go into academics. I want to be a professor, and that is definitely something you can do with the major. Otherwise, it's like a lot of jobs you haven't really heard of, but like that people really like to hire you for. It is, I've got to say, harder to find co-op jobs in combinatorics and optimization. Just gonna put that out there. There are not a lot of jobs on Waterloo Works that are in my field, but something like supply chain manager or anything that like involves the word optimization, it's just a bunch of like random cool types of jobs that you haven't really heard of before. Combinatorics and optimization also works really well if you have computer science experience, if you have coding experience. It combines really well with that, and you can do jobs that involve either optimization or combinatorics from a computer science coding perspective as well.
So the next question is, what's the best way to prepare for evaluations? So in my experience so far, like a lot of times when there's a quiz or an assignment, there'll be like a corresponding. So we had like weekly quizzes, for example, when I was taking Math 137. So there would be a corresponding assignment to go with each quiz. And sometimes the questions would be the exact same from the assignment, not all the time, but there would be really similar ones. So just keeping up with coursework like that, even if it's something that's not for marks, so we didn't actually have to hand the assignments in, but they were related to the quizzes. So in that way, it helped us prepare. And another thing is just going to office hours. And if you have any questions, meeting with your profs or your TAs and checking on understanding.
Yeah, I agree with all of that. I talk to friends sometimes. I work with friends. Um, Often in your math courses, though definitely not your CS courses, it is encouraged to talk with friends when you're working on assignments. You do have to credit them. You have to write down their names, tell your professor who you worked with. You have to make sure you understand all your solutions. You can't just copy exactly from a friend, but you can work with a friend and share ideas, and that often helps if you don't get a concept as well and they get it a lot better. How hard is it for non-co-op regular students to find jobs after graduation? So I definitely can't speak to this from personal experience because I have not graduated and tried to find a job yet. I also plan on going into a master's program after Waterloo. Like, it's not even my intention to immediately find a job. So maybe, Ali, you have a better answer for that.
Honestly, I'm not too sure either. I just finished my first co-op and I'm just about to go into second year, so I am not even thinking that far ahead yet. But from what I've heard, like with our degree, we have lots of options, even if we're not working with something like super specific, like directly what we want to be looking at. Math has so many options for career paths, I guess.
Hmm. I think it depends what you want to do as a job. Um, but yeah, really it depends what you want to do, how much you put yourself out there, if you make connections during university or not, if you get a summer job or not. Like, these are the types of things that might make a difference.
Are any of our professors going to take online discussions? How are discussions going to take place? So this sort of information again will be in your syllabus, so you should be able to view that next Tuesday when classes start. If they do have discussions, they might be on Learn, which is like our website where all of our courseware and everything kind of takes place. They might be on a different platform as well. Again, it depends on the professor, so it'll all be outlined for you there, and it'll be explained in detail, so you won't have to worry about that yet until you hear on Tuesday whether or not that's a part of your course.
Yep. Um, what were the hardest topics when you took Math 135 and 137? So I took the advanced classes, Math 145 and 147. And honestly, the topics of Math 135, 45 is the same classes. It's just one is taught at a more advanced level. I didn't find to be particularly challenging topics wise. It doesn't build off anything you know, so they do explain everything from the very beginning. The hard part of that course is you're doing proofs and you're learning how to write a proof. And writing proofs is not always the easiest thing in the world. For 137, I'm just terrible at limits. Like, I know this is not a necessarily everyone's hardest topic, but it focuses on differentiation, limits, and continuity. And limits are used like throughout that entire course, and I am just not good at them. And I took the advanced course anyways, which maybe wasn't the best decision I've ever made. But yeah, I just can't do limits.
So it says, how many clubs should I join in my first year? How many is too much? So I know personally what I did. I mean, and you guys won't have the exact same experience because obviously we had things in person, but I went to the like club fair and kind of looked at all the clubs. So you guys can do this on the WUSA website and look at all the different clubs as well. Am I cutting out here? I'm just gonna keep talking. But basically I signed up for kind of a bunch of different clubs that I was interested in, and then I kind of went to the first meeting of maybe every single club and narrowed it down to the ones that I really wanted to participate in and that were really of interest to me. I didn't want to overload because I didn't want to take any attention away from my studies or anything like that. So you kind of get a feel for how much time you're going to have, and it's okay if you join a club and you go to a few meetings and then you go, I don't have enough time for this. Like there's no hard commitments like that unless you choose to do something like that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so I joined a couple clubs, also went to the club fair, walked around, saw what interested me. And I did some performance clubs where we had like an end of year show. I did cabaret club where like it's like musical theater and the like student executives write a musical and you all like act and dance and sing in it, and it was a lot of fun. But that's like the type of thing that it's a little harder to quit. Like, if you stay for more than like 5 like meetings, you're kind of committed. But there are a lot more clubs that are like much more chill. You can go whenever you want, not go whenever you want. That are much easier to like kind of drop if you don't have as much time.
Of course.
I also feel like I'm on a different question list than you because I don't have that one.
I'm looking at the all because I was
Oh,
like
okay.
getting out of order and then I was getting confused. So I'm just, I think Ellie's answered some of them too, but I'm just kind of bouncing around. Yeah, it's all good.
Okay.
Uh,
How difficult would you say CS 135 would be for students with no coding experience? I'm a student who had no coding experience who took CS 135, and I say not that hard. You don't Coding experience most of the time does not help you in CS 135 because they teach you a language that like no one really uses, but that's really good for learning how to think like a computer scientist. Um, Throughout CS 135, you use Dr. Racket, and they will teach you all the required syntax, and it starts out like quite like I would say fairly slowly to like make sure you understand what's going on, how to like write code. The first couple of assignments are just like write an expression that would like give the answer 100 or like write this out with the correct syntax. Like they do take quite a bit of time to teach you the stuff that you need to know. So I would say not that bad. I would definitely recommend it. I found it to be pretty interesting, of course.
so how different is Math 137 regular versus physics based? Personally, I didn't take the physics based, I just took the regular. But I had a close friend who took the physics based. And in terms of content, like we covered all the same content, but I noticed that they did things in somewhat different order. So like we would be on a certain topic and they hadn't done that yet, and vice versa. Um, and I did do a lot more like application based questions. So they would have like some word problems in there that maybe I hadn't seen before that would make more sense for a physics student. So that was the only difference that I really noticed having not taken it. But maybe Shannon has some more experience to share for this one.
I do not. I took 147, which is neither of the two courses being asked about. Um, are we expected to memorize all the trig identities for math classes, or are we given a formula sheet? So when you're in lectures, you don't have to memorize them. You can have them written down for lectures, but when you go into exams or you go into quizzes, for the most part, these are things you do have to memorize. I am terrible at memorization. It's my least favorite part of calculus, like to memorize things. Um, but yeah, like most of the time you use the stuff enough that you like know most of it by the time you're going into the exams. It's the same thing we were talking about, like do all your assignments, do all your quizzes, because that practice is going to make you much more familiar with the identities and the things that you will have to memorize. And by the time you're taking the exam, you will already know a lot of them and you won't have to like actively work to memorize it.
Uh, is a lack of work experience a major disadvantage in getting your first co-op? So I think that this depends on the jobs that you're applying for. It'll probably be different for every position. For me, I had work experience before and I was able to get a co-op, but that doesn't mean that the opposite wouldn't have been true. Um, I think as long as you have some extracurriculars to show or something valuable that you can offer to an employer, it doesn't have to be a work experience necessarily, but as long as you know how to sell yourself, I think that you'll be able to secure a co-op.
I had no relevant experience. I taught dance. I was a camp counselor in high school. Like these are the job experiences I had when I went to get my first co-op. Um, and I didn't get anything in main round, but I got 3 offers in continuous. So like there is you can still get jobs. You want to write a nice resume, even if there's not that much to put on it. You want to write cover letters when they ask for them and like put work into them. I For the resume I submitted in main round, I had a typo in literally the first sentence, which like no one told me when I asked people to look over my resume, I guess. So I fixed that for continuous round, and then I started getting offers. So I don't even know that it was related to my lack of experience. It could have just been that one typo. But yeah, like just prepare for your interviews, prepare a nice resume, nice cover letter. You should do fine. They're not expecting you to have a ton of experience. They know that you're only in first year. Um, how would we be able to meet new people online? So you have this beautiful thing that you are all in, I believe, called Waterloo Math Ready, and you have been put into groups with other students, and you get to talk to them. And it's so exciting because you have this resource that a lot of us didn't really have, where like we couldn't meet people online. You have to like go up and talk to someone in person, which can be a little scary, and probably so can reaching out to them online. But at least if you reach out to them online, they never know your face. So you see them in person, and it's like they don't even know that they rejected you. So I say reach out to everyone in your Math Ready groups. Reach out to people in your classes. When you get on classes in Learn, you can find like a class list. And I don't know how you would pick from a class list because there's going to be like 1,000 people in your class. But like if you just at random pick some people, email them. If you see a little green dot, it means they're online. So maybe you want to email them then. There might be options through like Piazza, which is a discussion group, or perhaps if your class is doing some synchronous work to actually meet people through online. And then another great way is joining clubs. If you find a good club, you will get to talk to people through that. But yeah, really just reach out to people.
Are assignments graded based on completion or based on how many questions we get correct? So from what I remember, I don't think there were any assignments that were just like a check mark for completion. It was always, for my experience at least, it was always like marks for each question, and you can get like part marks or full marks, and that would make up your grade for that assignment. But there might be some changes because of things being online. I don't think so, but um, one thing that is kind of like this is participation. So like we'll if you have clicker questions or like just answering discussion posts or things like that, you don't necessarily have to have like the right answer, but marks like that are often like completion marks. So if you participate in X amount of posts, then you get those marks for participation. But for assignments, I don't remember anything being just for completion, but I could be wrong.
I didn't have any completion-based assignments in math. I did in some other electives. Um, but yeah, it's all you get, like maybe it's 5 marks or 10 marks per question on your assignment, and you can get full marks or part marks depending on how well you do. And then your grade is based off that. My friend who is a senior at Waterloo told me not to take the 1-4X courses as they are very, very difficult and it does not matter too much. Is this true? Okay, so for the most part, the 140 courses are just because you are passionate about math and you want to spend a lot of time doing math and you want to learn some more advanced math and you just like love math with your whole heart. If that is you, I would recommend the 140 courses. If you don't like taking courses that are easy and you think you're very good at math, I would recommend the 140 courses. Personally, I was really bored all through high school math because the classes weren't hard enough, and that's why I decided to take the 140 math because like I'm paying for an education. I want to get the best education. I don't want to like it turns out the 130 classes are hard enough already. They would not have been too easy if I had taken them. But going into first year, I obviously didn't know that. I was like, I don't want my classes to be too easy, so I'm going to take the hardest classes. Does it not matter? So is not, it does not matter at all unless you decide to major in pure mathematics, then taking the 140 level calculuses mean you have to take one less prerequisite, which really is not that important. You can take an extra prerequisite later on. It doesn't set you back. It just means you're taking an extra course in analysis, which if you're going into pure math, you probably really like analysis because that's a lot of pure math. And so yeah, taking the 140 horses does not matter very much. It really doesn't matter at all. The only reason I would recommend taking them is if you like truly love math and just want to spend so much time doing math. Otherwise, take the 130 courses. They will be adequately interesting and challenging, and you will learn a lot, and they will give you all the things that you need to go on to your future courses.
So how many hours besides class hours did you study on average in a day? So for me, it kind of differed like throughout the week. Like I had days where I had more classes, so I would study a bit less on those days. I think like in a week, I would probably have like I want to say like 20 hours maybe that I would spend like I don't know. I think it would differ depending on like what time of the term you're in as well. I don't think there's like a set number where it's like if you study this much you're going to succeed and if you don't you won't. Like you kind of get a feel for it as you get your assignments and there will be busier weeks and less busier weeks. As long as you're not overworking yourself and burning yourself out and but you're still, you know, putting some effort in and doing some work outside of class, like I think that you should be good, but for me personally, I feel like it was around 20 hours per week, maybe a little bit more. I'm not really sure. It's kind of hard to like gauge it.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know anyone who times themselves as they're doing work, and if you're not doing that, I don't really know how you tell. You spend a lot of time doing work, but you do have time for other stuff. Like I did.
I think Shannon's having some technical difficulties. So if Allison could just take over until we get Shannon back up.
Yeah, for sure. So how easy is it to switch majors within the faculty? So again, from my experience, I haven't even chosen my major yet. So I don't have a lot of personal experience with this, but I know most of the math majors are really flexible. Like you just have to declare and say like, okay, I'm majoring in this now, and it's easy to switch over. There are some that you have to apply for. Data science is one. Um, I'm not sure if there are any others. Maybe we'll circle back to this once we get Shannon back in here. But for the most part, the majors are pretty flexible. And if you decide like, oh, this thing isn't for me, then you can easily switch to a different major. There just might be different courses that you have to take. Back to take 2 communication courses, or should we drop one and choose some? I'm assuming that you mean like 2 at the same time. Is it best to take 2 communication courses, or should we drop one? For me, I did 1 in first term and 1 in second term, and I thought that was like a good balance because um, they're definitely really different than your math classes. So for me, I liked to separate it like that, like have some math classes, but also have something else that I could sort of balance out my coursework with because there was a lot of reading for my communication courses personally, and we had like presentations and things like that. So it might be a little bit busy if you have 2 of them at the same time. But I don't think it would be terrible. It just might. I don't think I would personally choose it for myself. And what was your first co-op job? So I just finished my first co-op term, and I was an ISA for CS 100 at the University of Waterloo. So an ISA is an instructional support assistant. It's basically like a TA. And I helped with like creating assignments and grading, and I got to hold like virtual office hours and help students with their assignments and things like that. And I guess I can go into the next question with this a bit. So it's not entirely related to what I want to do. I don't really want to go into teaching with my degree, but I did learn lots of valuable skills that I can bring into other co-ops and that I can bring into my degree. Like I got to work with students and help lead a group a lot of times, and I got to work with like Excel and lots of different platforms online that will help me in the future. So even though it wasn't exactly related to what I wanted to do, it's still beneficial.
Yeah, so just a note to everyone. So Shannon dropped the call. She should hopefully be back soon, but I'll be just just answering along with Allison until she's all back and set up. So one question that we got was what happens in actuarial science, and what do people do in co-op? So I'm actually an actuarial science major, and so just referring to one of the questions that Allison answered a little bit earlier was, so for actuarial science you do need to apply to get into the program. It's not like a huge requirement. There's no limit to the things, but you just need to make sure you take Methyl 131, which is Introduction to Actuarial Practice, and get a 60 in it, and also make sure that you have a 70 average throughout your math classes to get admitted to it. And you're usually going to be working at a bunch of insurance companies like Sun Life, Manulife. I've worked at BMO. I've worked at a consulting firm, or like some PNC insureds as well. So that's usually where you're going to be working for your actuarial co-ops. And so, yeah. So Shannon, are you back? Can you talk just so can we hear you that you're back?
Hi, yeah. The router in my house turned off, so I'm now at my neighbor's house.
Dedication.
Not sure what happened there. Sorry, guys.
So I'll hand it back off to you two. And yeah, thanks.
Thank you, Ellie.
I think you were talking about like how many hours you study on average kind of thing, Shannon, when you left us. I don't know if there's anything else you wanted to add there.
I'm just waiting for the questions to load, so do you want to take one, Allie?
Yeah, for sure. So there's one about 130, and then 140 courses. I'm going to let you take that. How difficult is CS 135 if you have little to no background experience? So maybe Shannon can look at this one actually too, because I personally didn't take CS 135. I took CS 115. But I think she touched on this a little bit ago. You basically start from a programming language called Dr. Racket. So most people will have little to no experience with Dr. Racket at all, and you'll sort of build from the ground up and learn as if you have no programming experience anyways. It will be like faster paced than like a high school programming course, for example, but it won't be impossible to keep up with, and it won't be anything too crazy, I guess. Shannon, would you agree?
Yeah, I didn't find it to be that challenging. I had learned JavaScript in grade 8 and basically hadn't done any coding since then. So I definitely wouldn't say I had coding experience going into CS 135, but I found that for the most part it was fine. It gets a little challenging near the end, but if you work throughout the whole course, you should be able to do it. Did we answer? Tell me if something's answered if I read it, because I don't know what you did while I was gone. Which is more important for co-op job interviews, your numerical grades or the difficulty level of your courses?
I did not answer that. I don't even see that one, but go ahead with the one.
Oh, I would say for the most part, first of all, the courses you actually take, not the difficulty of the courses, but like the names of the courses, are they relevant to the job that you're applying for? Like if you're trying to get a job in statistics, how many statistics courses have you taken? If you're trying to get a job in financial math, how many finance courses have you taken? The people giving you jobs don't actually know like how hard each individual course is. They just can see the course name and they kind of guess from that what you learned in that course and if it will be relevant. So then after the actual name of the course and its relevance to your job, then I would say numerical grades. Although I definitely wouldn't say that grades are the most important thing when getting jobs. I know some people who had excellent grades and got like a ton of interviews and then didn't get any offers off the interviews because they were unprepared for interviews. I also know people who don't have great grades and still got great jobs because they got like the one interview and they killed it, and then they got this awesome job. So I wouldn't put too much stock into your actual grades, although you would like to do well.
There is one there, Shannon, that I think you'd be better suited for. It's what's the difference between the 130 and the 140 courses? I think you touched on this a bit, but
Difference between 130 and 140 courses. The 140 courses are going to be more theoretical and more proof-based. In the 130 courses, you do occasionally have to do some proofs, but for the most part, it's like, we've taught you this way of doing this thing, and now you have to like solve various problems that we have taught you how to solve, and that's like, it's not as easy as it may sound when I'm saying it like that. The problems are still challenging, and like, but it's very much applications. Like, you learn how to do something and then you do it. Whereas the 140 courses are much more into the theory. You don't actually like solve a lot of mathematical problems. You mostly like explain why this thing happens or prove some mathematical concept. And it's much more theory based. I found I switched out of the 240s for second year linear algebra and calculus because I did a term abroad and they only offered the regular level courses because they were only taking 30 students. You can't offer both types of courses. And I found that there were some things that I didn't know, like some certain applications that we had like theoretically learned how to do, but like hadn't actually ever been tested on. So I wasn't super solid in those like applications. But I was quite confident in my ability to prove things and my like grasp of the theory. So it's not, you don't always learn exactly the same things, but it comes from a more theoretical point of view. For the most part, you learn what they learn in the 130s. Yeah.
so some math cell clubs run separately from MUSA, like Pure Math and AXI. Are we able to join these math cell clubs when everything is online? So this is up to the like club's discretion whether or not they want to be accepting members, I guess, and running events and things like that during the online term. I believe most of the math soc clubs, if not all of them, will be running during the fall term. But for more information on that, I would check out Math Soc and go through the clubs, check out their Facebook, stuff like that, and they'll have more information there on how to join and how to get involved.
What majors can we pursue in math? So I'm gonna go off the top of my head, and then Ali, maybe if I miss something, you can add it in. So there's pure mathematics, which is some calculus, some number theory, some algebra. There's combinatorics and optimization, which I kind of explained earlier. There's applied mathematics, which is like math, how it relates to the sciences. So that would be quite a bit of calculus. There is computational mathematics, which is mostly like doing calculations for a variety of different types of mathematics. There is actuarial science. There is statistics. There is math teaching, which is if you want to go the teaching route, become a teacher. What am I missing?
I'm looking at the website, so I'm kind of cheating, but there's math, physics. There's like financial, like mathematical finance. There's quite a few here. There's applied math. I don't know if you touched on that one.
Mm-hmm.
CS is another one. So there's quite a few options, which can be overwhelming. Like I still feel that, so I'm sure like a lot of you guys who are still like just coming in are like, wow, there's a lot of different things that I can do. I just know that I like math. I just know that I like math. I don't really know what I want to do either. But what's nice is there's a lot of courses that are general, like obviously for first year that you have to take, so you don't have to decide anything now. But there's also lots of room to explore. So like this coming term, I'm taking like a stats course, but also like a different CS course. So I'm going to see like what I kind of like out of those, and I'll be able to pick from there, not from just there, but yeah, you don't have to decide anything now based on your majors. Is basically what I'm saying.
The other really cool thing we have at Waterloo is what's called a joint major. So if you really like two majors and you can't decide, there might be an option to do a joint major where it's the same amount of courses as doing one major, but like half of it is in one area and half of it is in the other. Or there's always the option to do a major and a minor, like I'm doing. When I was in first year, I was deciding between applied math and pure math and combinatorics and optimization. And so now I'm majoring in one and doing a minor in another. And I found that worked really well for me.
Do CS and math students compete for the same co-op jobs? So on Waterloo Works, you can see like all of the different co-op offerings for even like programs outside of math. So you can like see like the science offerings if you want. Like you can see all of the co-op job opportunities. So you can apply to whichever ones you want. So CS students will sometimes apply for like ones that they're looking for maybe like math teaching students or stats students or whatever, and vice versa. There will be like certain posts that are like, hey, like we want a CS student. They don't say it like that, but they want like specifically a computer science major, or they want a this major, but you can still apply for those jobs, and you might still get an interview, you might still get the job. So it just depends on the employer and the ad posting, I guess.
Yeah, the job board is the same for CS and math students. So although jobs may specify who they actually want to hire, you all have the same pool of jobs on Waterloo Works. And so technically you could say that you are competing for the same co-op jobs. Is there a possibility of not getting a co-op job, and what will happen if you are not able to get one? So yes, there's the possibility of not getting a co-op job. At the current moment, because of COVID, and again, as we said earlier, we're not sure how much of this will hold or like continue by the time you're applying for co-op jobs. But at the current moment, because of co-op, because of COVID, if you don't get a co-op job, there is no penalty for that. They're also accepting some more flexible positions as co-op jobs that may be easier to get. If you don't get a co-op job through Waterloo Works, you can always go personal out there networking, trying to find your own job, arranging your own job. But if you, by the end of the term, really have no job, or like actually slightly into your co-op term, you could go a couple weeks into your co-op term still looking for a job and it will still count. But if you still are unable to find one, as an honors mathematics student, you're only required to complete successfully 5 of the 6 co-op terms that you guys have in your schedule. So if you really don't get one the first time, it's not the end of the world. Although I would certainly go and find some resources and some people to talk to look at your resume, look at your cover letters, and help you out with interviews just so that you have better chances at getting a job the next round.
Okay, so thank you guys so much. And as we're coming to a close, I just wanted to thank our panelists. So thank you, Ali, and thank you, Shannon, for taking the time out of your day for answering all these questions. If your questions was not answered, it might be on the Q&A section of the Waterloo, or frequently asked questions of the Waterloo Ready page. So double check there. And if it's not there, we'll be updating that shortly with some of the questions that were repeated all throughout this. So double check there in a few days, and we'll hopefully have more answers. And just to close out our event, I just wanted to remind everyone to Thank you guys all so much for coming, and we have our Earn Your Tie event happening on Monday at 11 o'clock, so make sure you check Portal for a link to that, and submit your math dance by the end of the day so that we're able to share it with everybody and show it to the dean, because we really do want to have that. So thank you guys so much for coming, and have a great day. Bye.
Thanks, guys. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.